This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Good morning, ladies, and thanks for joining us this morning for our annual Domestic Violence Awareness Month training for the Cut It Out program. Um, let's see. All right. So we already did introductions prior to starting to tape. I wanted to share a story with you guys about why I'm so passionate about this particular program. So, Cut It Out was started by the beauty community against domestic violence. And what they recognized was that beauticians and cosmetologists, hairdressers happen to be someone in the community that women feel comfortable going to. I know, we hear, who do people talk to most about their lives and what's going on, and we hear, bartenders and hairdressers a lot of times are the ones who are hearing things that are going on. So my personal story, and why I'm so passionate about this program in general and reaching out to this community. I had gone to get my hair cut, and I don't have a regular hairdresser, but gone to get my hair cut at a little salon, and had a young lady cutting my hair, and she someone else came through and they were sweeping up the stations, and she made a comment when that woman left that gosh, I really hate women that can't, stand up for themselves and let their men treat them like trash. And I kind of sat up straight in my chair, and this woman had never, met me before. This girl, she was a young woman, had never met me before, didn't, really know who I was, or, my background or my life experiences or anything like that. And just kind of sat there and thought, okay, I'm just gonna get my hair cut, and not really I don't know, I was just like, okay, here we go, we're gonna just get our haircut. And again, a couple minutes later, under her breath, made another comment about that woman. And I could no longer keep quiet and keep my mouth shut. And I just kind of said, are you open to having a conversation with me? And she said, sure. And I said, we've never met before, and I've noticed that you've made a couple of comments, and I just want to tell you a little bit about my background. And she said, okay. And I said, I work in the field of domestic violence and sexual assault, and I do outreach and education, and I've heard a couple of comments that you've made about that woman, and I'm just wondering where that's coming from. And she looked very nervous, to which I got very nervous because she had my hair in her hand, and and she said, well, that's not really what I meant. And I said, I've been doing this work for a really long time, and what I've noticed is that, a lot of times what we feel in our gut is that we wish that that individual would have enough strength to leave that relationship, and that, they would feel empowered enough to not allow someone to treat them that way. But then when we try to help, sometimes it comes out as something that's not so nice. And what I heard you say really was not so nice. You said that you really hated women who let their men treat them like trash, and stayed in relationships like that. And she said, well, you don't understand. I've been there. And I said, I absolutely understand that you have been there. And I want you to think about how what you say impacts the people that are sitting in your chair. I said, you don't know who I am. And what if I was a current victim of domestic violence? Do you think that your statements would empower me to leave my relationship, or they would shut me down and, prove to me what my abuser tells me, that I don't deserve anything better and that it's my fault for staying? And she said, I never really thought about it that way. And I said, I'm not angry. I'm not upset. And I'm hope that I'm not hurting your feelings. I just really want to give you another perspective. And she said, I really appreciated it. And then gave me probably the worst haircut of my life, because her hands were shaking so bad and I felt so bad for her. And but I couldn't sit in that chair and not give her a different perspective. And so I think it's so important for us to understand, not just as a hairdresser or a beautician or a cosmetologist or a lash artist, or a brow person or any of that, that we are the end all be all. But in our life every day, the words that we use matter. The tone that we use, the message that we send matters to the people around us. So I'm very excited to be with you guys here today, educating this community a little bit more about domestic violence and how to appropriately be able to identify, clients that may be experiencing this, how to respond to it, and then how to offer resources in a way that will make that person feel empowered. So in the presentation today, I'm going to be asking a lot of questions. So there'll be some dialogue. So feel free to unmute and participate in the conversation as we go. All right. So about this program. So like I said, Cut It Out is a program that was created by the beauty community against domestic violence to raise awareness of domestic violence by training salon professionals to recognize the signs and symptoms and to safely and confidentially refer clients, friends, family, and coworkers to local resources. So the National Domestic Violence Hotline information is on your screen now. I'll be giving you our information specifically for Montgomery or surrounding counties at the end of the training. And then I also want to let you know, in the email that I sent out, there was a participation guide that has more information, and it's a great guide to follow along if you got a chance to download that. And then there's also a link in there to the website for this program where you are able to order free materials to have in your salon to offer assistance to individuals who may be coming in, and really just as a sign that you are a safe place. So there are posters available. There are cards, information cards that you can have either at the front, at each salon table, salon area. And then also, I recommend putting a poster or information in your restroom. People are in there by themselves. It's a lot safer for them to take information. Maybe if they're not ready to talk about it yet, it's a great way for them to be able to get information without having to actually talk to someone about it. And then also putting out the message that, again, you are a safe place, you're educated, you want clients to come and talk to you if they're experiencing something like this. All right, so when you hear the phrases intimate partner violence or domestic violence, what are some of the things that you think about when you hear those phrases?
Someone that is in control of your finances, so therefore you tend to let them do what they do so that you can survive for you and your kids most of the time.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, financial abuse definitely is something that we see a lot of. Anyone else? What is something that you think about when you hear the words intimate partner violence or domestic violence? All right. So I think a lot of times when I'm out in the community talking about domestic violence, we hear a lot about the physical aspect of domestic violence, and don't necessarily think of the non-physical stuff. Amy, did you have something to add? I saw that you unmuted.
Oh, no, because they can also control how you dress. They can control you seeing your family members, your friends. They can control
Yes,
your phone calls, your social media.
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Great examples. All right. So intimate partner violence is a pattern of violent and or coercive tactics, a pattern of behavior leading to one person having more power and control in that relationship than the other intimate partner or over that intimate partner. So it's important to understand that anyone can be a victim. And while most abusers are males, the majority of men are not abusers. Okay. Like I said in the introduction, I've been doing this work for over 20 years. And in the beginning, it was overwhelmingly men who were the abusers in intimate partner violent relationships. And still today in relationships where there's a lot of physical violence, we do definitely see that it is the majority of men that are abusers. I saw a shift probably about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, where I started seeing a lot more female aggression happening in relationships. And mind you, at this point, I was doing trainings and presentations and education in middle schools and high schools, and saw a huge shift. So prior to that, I would say it was probably 95% of abusers were males. And I don't have statistics to back this up. This is my personal, experience and what I've noticed trending in this field is that I would probably say it's more like 85-15 now. So 85% of abusers are male, while 15% are female. And with females, we see some different tactics. So we see a lot of emotional abuse. We see a lot of verbal put downs, embarrassing in front of their friends, controlling who they can see, a lot of jealousy being used, keeping their partner, their male partner, away from family members, perhaps, and then definitely some physical violence. But we see more of the jealousy and the control and the verbal, mental, and emotional abuse when we have female abusers. But again, probably 85% we are seeing that men are the abusers in these relationships. All right, common myths. So what are some common myths that you have heard about domestic violence or intimate partner violence? Or causes for intimate partner violence?
One of the things I've seen is the abuser saying they made me do that.
Yes.
They asked for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So using someone else's behavior as an excuse for your physical violence or your emotional outbursts, right? Yeah, absolutely. We definitely see that happening. So, sometimes after a physical incident has happened or a verbal incident has happened, a lot of times we hear a couple was at a party and someone was talking to someone they weren't supposed to be talking to, and there was a verbal altercation or a verbal fight or even a physical fight that happened. And then the abuser says things like, "Why did you make me do that? If you hadn't been talking to that person or flirting with that person or looking at that person, I would not have had to do this to you," right? Where my choice to act physically violent or be verbally aggressive, is based on your behavior that I didn't approve of, right? And that's just another way of victim blaming that we see, right? Where abusers are able to control or try to attempt to control their partner's behavior by blaming them for the physical violence that happens or the embarrassment that happens. Absolutely. What are some other myths that y'all have heard? So there's a few up on the screen. So we have things like mental illness is a cause of domestic violence. And while, some mental illness can cause erratic behavior, it's a choice sometimes to not stay on the regimen that your doctor has prescribed medication, not actively trying to alleviate the symptoms of that mental illness, and also mental illness, like a lot of times we hear bipolar disorder being something that is a cause, and I hear that a lot with males who are victims. It's interesting to hear men and boys talk about their female partners who have aggressive or abusive tendencies, because they'll say things like, "She's crazy," or "She's bipolar," or things like that, in place of where they should be saying, she is physically abusive or mentally abusive, or and a lot of that I think comes from gender stereotyping and all of that kind of stuff. And mental illness is something that can be corrected with medication, with therapy, with those sorts of things. It's not a choice, right? Abuse is a choice. I'm looking at your behavior and trying to control that, and I'm going to do whatever is necessary to get my partner to act in a way that I think they should act, or speak in a way, or dress in a way, or be around people that I believe they should be allowed to be around. And that is my choice, right? Genetics is another common myth. While we do overwhelmingly see that children who grow up in homes where domestic violence takes place, either ending up in later years as victims or perpetrators, we actually see that there's quite a few people who grow up in homes that do not grow up to perpetrate or be victims, or we see that cycle of victimization change later in life. It's not genetics. Abuse can be a learned behavior, but we also have a say in that. We also get to determine the outcome for our life. If we're recognizing in ourselves unhealthy or abusive tendencies, there's lots of things that we can do about that, right? We don't get to just say, oh, it's in my genetics. Okay. Alcohol and drug abuse are another common myth, that alcohol and drug abuse cause domestic violence. Not true. While drugs and alcohol may be present when domestic violence incidents happen or intimate partner violence incidents happen, physical or otherwise, it is not a cause. If it was a cause, that would mean any time you or I went out with our friends, had a drink or two or 12, that we would go home and beat or abuse physically or verbally, our partner. And what we can see is that potentially alcohol and drugs increase the physicalness of those incidents, that even when that abusive person is not drinking or using, there's a whole pattern of power and control that happens outside of the drugs and alcohol, whether it be through jealousy, which we talked about earlier, whether it be about controlling finances, which Frida brought up earlier, whether it be about controlling who that person sees or who is on their social media or how they dress, like Amy brought up earlier, right? There's this whole pattern of power and control outside of the drugs and alcohol. Now, as a victim, I may look at when the abuse is the worst, right? When it is the worst. And when it is the worst is when my partner is drinking or using drugs, because that's potentially when the physicalness of that relationship happens. So it's very easy for me to say, if I could just get them to stop drinking or using, everything would be fine. And it's very easy for that abuser to say, I need you to stay with me and give me the strength to stop drinking and using, because this doesn't happen when I'm not drinking or using, right? And it's difficult for that victim to step back and see the larger picture, that the drugs and alcohol are not causing it, because there's this whole other underlying pattern of power and control that happens even when drugs and alcohol are not in the mix, if that makes sense. Okay. Another myth is out of control behavior or anger. Right? I was just so angry. I couldn't control myself. You just make me so angry. I can't control myself. When you talk to that other person, or when you look at them, or when you don't do what I tell you to do, I get so angry I can't control myself, right? And again, if the physical violence is happening when that person is angry, or the in public outbursts and embarrassment are happening when the victim does something to make that person quote unquote angry, then it's difficult to again step back and see that they are able to control their anger in other areas of their life, right? They got passed up for a job promotion. Did they beat the crap out of their boss? They got in trouble for, not meeting a deadline requirement at work, or being late for work. And did they punish their boss? Are they physically or verbally abusive to the children? That doesn't always happen in abusive relationships, right? Have they been, how are they with their other family members or their friends in situations that may quote unquote anger them? Let's say that you're driving in your car and you get cut off, right? And that person may yell and scream or yell an obscenity or even flip that person off. But do they pull them over and pull them out of the car and beat them? Probably not. But when they get home, do they then use that as an excuse to potentially hurt or harm you, right? A pattern of being able to show in other situations that that person can control their anger, but it's a choice in the relationship that they're not. And sometimes that is really difficult for victims to see and come to grips with, that these common myths are just that, they are myths. Abuse is a choice, right? I'm not going to tell you I've never been angry at my husband or called him out of his name, because I have, right? But I have a choice in that moment how I respond. Is it going to escalate? Am I going to say those mean, hurtful things that I know are going to get at him? Or do I take a step back and take a breath, right? And move forward in the best interest of our relationship? It's a choice. And no matter how angry we are, what our genetics are, what our past experiences, we have a choice and we have to own up to that. Okay. And stress and problems in the relationship. Again, while all of these common myths can exacerbate a relationship, they do not cause. Because if there was a cause and an effect, that means every person who experienced any of these things on the screen would be perpetrating abuse in their relationship. And we just don't see that. Okay. So hopefully that is clearing things up a little bit for you. Okay, so we are going to watch a little video put out by the organization.
I was too afraid to share what I was going through. You can't.
I don't have any volume.
Me either.
Okay.
Oh no. Okay, hang on one second. Let me see if I can. Let's see if I can get it to start over.
I was too afraid to share what I was going through. You can't say it because it's so simple. I was screaming for help without actually screaming for help. Does that make sense? I do wish someone had said, I'd like to help. I would have spoiled it. But domestic violence is really an umbrella term, and it covers any type of violence that's happening with the family. So whether that's direct to child, the sibling, or the intimate partner. I like to refer to domestic violence and what's happening about intimate partners as intimate partner violence.
Melanie, it's kind of garbled.
And what that really is a pattern of behavior, usually consisting of controlling tactics in order to keep one partner under control. It can include physical and sexual violence. It also includes emotional and psychological abuse. It could be something as little as you didn't like the way I looked. I was too afraid to share what I was going through. But you can't say it because it's so simple. I was screaming for help without actually screaming for help. Does that makes sense. I do wish someone had said, I'd like to help. I would have spilled it. Well, domestic violence is really an umbrella term, and that covers any type of violence that's happening within a family. So whether that's to a child, to a sibling, or a partner, to intimate partner. I like to refer to domestic violence and what's happening about intimate partners as intimate partner violence, to be more specific. And what that really is it's a pattern of behavior, usually consisting of controlling tactics in order to keep one partner under the control of the other. That can include physical, sexual violence, and also includes emotional and psychological abuse. It could be something as little as you didn't like the way I loaded the dishwasher, or what I fixed for supper, or what I, how it worked. Everything is said to me. That's why I believed it. I thought I was okay. I was unloving. They say that for women, it can affect anywhere between 15 and 50% of women who've experienced domestic violence or intimate partner violence throughout their lives. And it's a really large number, and like the spread of that, 15 to 50%.
Can everybody else understand what they're saying? Is it just me?
I can,
I can't either.
Too afraid to share what I was going through.
Oh, much better.
Say it because it's so shameful.
Thank
Okay,
you.
let's try again. You're welcome.
I was too afraid to share what I was going through. You can't say it because it's so shameful. I was screaming for help without actually screaming for help. Does that make sense? I do wish someone had said, I'd like to help. I would have spilled it. So domestic violence is really an umbrella term, and it covers any type of violence that's happening within a family. So whether that's parent to child, sibling to sibling, or partner to intimate partner. I like to refer to domestic violence when we're talking about intimate partners as intimate partner violence, to be more specific. And what that really is it's a power of behavior, usually consisting of controlling tactics in order to keep one partner under the control of the other. It can include physical and sexual violence, and it also includes emotional and psychological abuse.
I mean, it could be something as little as he didn't like the way I loaded the dishwasher, or what I fixed for supper, or what how I dressed. Everything he said to me. Eventually, I believed it. I thought I was ugly. I thought I was unworthy. I thought I was dumb.
They say that for women, it can affect anywhere between 15 and 50% of women who've experienced domestic violence or intimate partner violence throughout their lives. And it's a really large number, and that the spread of that 15 to 50% is likely due to reporting. A lot of people are experiencing intimate partner violence and never report it to authorities or to anyone in their lives.
He was a doctor, and I was a nurse.
and we were fighting on the streets in Chicago. And he hit me so hard, I fell and hit my head on the curb. And the amazing thing was there had to have been 50, 60 people around. And nobody said a word. They just all walked away. So intimate partner violence is an issue that impacts all different types of people. There really is no typical perpetrator or no typical victim or survivor. It impacts men and women.
I have been doing hair for 20 years, and it usually doesn't take long to start noticing that your client is having something happen in their personal life. You know, usually their cell phone will ring 10 or 15 times while they're in your chair. Or I've even had clients' partners come in and try and dictate how they want the haircut or their color done. Or they could come in a little stiff or bruised. And typically they'll blame it on maybe they fell playing a sport. But in all reality, you know that it's something deeper than that. They won't tell their doctor either. You can have bruises all over. They would say they fall somewhere.
It can be really challenging to identify when someone is experiencing intimate partner violence. I would say it's really helpful to look for changes in their personality. So if someone is usually really bubbly and bright and then they come in and they're feeling really depressed or withdrawn, that could be a sign. There's also signs about their behavior in terms of their hair care and their makeup. So if someone has had a consistent style for a really long time and you suggest changing it up, if they feel hesitant or almost afraid to make a change, that could be a sign that there's someone else who's making that decision for them or controlling them. There's also other signs if someone says that their partner is waiting for them or they get a phone call 50 times throughout the session, that could be a sign that their partner might be abusive towards them.
I was very close to my hairdresser, and I would tell her just enough, but I was scared to talk to anybody. But she picked up on it. She started asking questions. And I'm so grateful and so thankful that she did that because it really caused me to open up.
I think one of the most important things to remember is that it's not your job to fix the problem. Your client has probably been experiencing that for a long time, and they're struggling to figure out how to fix the problem, but you can't take that burden onto yourself. The most important thing is to really just be empathetic and listen and allow them to share their experience as much as they're comfortable with.
It's so confusing. It's so difficult to make a decision about leaving, especially when you're feeling so bad about yourself and you're terrified. You're terrified for your life.
There's a lot of different reasons why someone stays in a relationship, even if it is abusive. And there's a lot of barriers to getting them out of that situation. I think one of the most common things is love. We have to remember that these people are in relationships with people, and the abuse doesn't usually start right away. It comes later on. So there's still a lot of loving feelings and hope that things could change. There's also a lot of other barriers. There's children involved, wanting a child to have two parents. There's also economic reasons why someone stays in a relationship. They might not be able to afford leaving on their own. The other thing is that it's very dangerous when someone leaves an abusive relationship. Studies have shown that the first year after someone leaves a relationship is actually the most dangerous time for them. So it's not a very easy decision to say, oh, just pick up and leave. The last thing that's important for people to know is that oftentimes people are trying. On average, women try to leave a relationship 7 times before they are successful in exiting the relationship. And they're drawn back in for a variety of reasons, including like what I mentioned before.
All right. So, looking back at the video, what are some things that you noticed about the video? What are some things that stood out to you?
The women looked like they had been through so much. You know, they looked traumatized. They almost couldn't have a complete sentence. It was like they were so devastated. And I don't know how long ago it was, but domestic violence can hang on with you all of your life, and sometimes you never shake that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it definitely speaks to the long-term ramifications of being in an abusive relationship, whether it's physical, emotional, verbal. I've actually had clients tell me, you know, I wish they would have beat me every day. You know, bruises fade and cuts heal and bones grow back together. But the way that they talked to me and the things that they said to me and the things that they made me believe about myself, I don't know that I'll ever get over that, right? And while physical abuse, I mean, every type of abuse is terrible. I can't tell you how many, you know, victims and survivors I've talked to that have said the verbal and the emotional abuse is what really lasts, right? And maybe you saw some of that with some of these women. Absolutely. What else stuck out to you guys? Was there anything particular about you know, what are some signs and symptoms that you might see in a chair or in a salon setting?
Yeah, I've seen that before. The women not changing their hair, that's a good one. I've seen it where, oh no, I could never do that. Oh, my husband would never let me do that. Or, oh no, it's they don't want you to look attractive for anybody else, they
Sure.
think.
I've been in the salon next to that woman that's gotten like 50 phone calls. No, I'm not done yet. It'll be, I'm coming. I'm coming. It's taking a while. But
Yeah.
the phone keeps ringing and they keep trying to, you know, talk to the hairdresser. Can you hurry? Can you hurry? So, but I've seen that.
Absolutely. Great example. Yeah, and I think even thinking about things, and that's why I love trainings that are specific to a particular industry or a particular population, like working with people who are in salons, because what you may notice is so different and what you are privy to is so different. Are they uncomfortable in the chair? Can they not sit for long periods of time? Do they jump if you touch them on the shoulder or come up from, you know, behind them? Do they startle easily? Are they missing parts of their hair, right? Are they missing clumps of hair? Is their hair thinning from stress? Um, do they have bruising along the hairline or on the back of the neck or in areas where you can't readily see? Back in the 90s when I first got started in this, we would go to trainings and they would talk about the strike zone being neck to knees, front to back, you know, areas of your body that are normally covered by clothing, that potentially, if there are injuries or bruises, you know, people may not readily see those. And as hairdressers, we're looking at people's necks, we're looking at their shoulders, we're, you know, brushing their hair behind their ears, we're looking in their hairline. You know, are we seeing things that are out of the ordinary, right? Definitely privy to some information that, you know, regular passersby or coworkers or friends may not necessarily notice. What were some things you noticed about when they were talking about why people stay? What stuck out to you?
When they were talking about the love part of it, that they love that person or emotionally attached to them. And a lot of times, when we were watching this, you would almost see like it's my job to love him. I can, people think they can love you enough to change you, or you're dating them and they're like that, and you say, well, when they marry me they'll be different because I'll love them and they'll change. But it really doesn't happen like that. Sometimes it escalates.
Oh, Miss Rita, yes, absolutely. I mean, love is the number one or the number one reason I would say why people stay. I mean, for the majority of people who experience intimate partner violence or domestic violence, it's not a violent incident every day. And I mean, it can happen in some relationships, but when we look at the vast majority of people who experience this, it's not the physical violence every day. It's not the cutting down every single day. There is what we call the cycle of violence. And so with the cycle, there is the honeymoon phase, the tension building phase, the explosion phase, and then right back into the honeymoon phase. And the honeymoon phase proves very, very important to this cycle for abusers, because in the honeymoon phase, I get a glimpse of who you used to be. I get the glimpse of who you could be. And I'm told, if you just love me enough, if you just stick with me, if you just help me stop using, stop drinking, stop whatever, then I can be this amazing person, right? And like Miss Rita said, we as women, I think, feel responsible for the outcome of the relationship. It weighs heavier on women when relationships don't work out. And so we don't want that judgment from people around us. We don't want that judgment from our friends and family. We place that judgment on ourselves that if this relationship doesn't work, it's my fault. So I need to stay. I need to be strong. I need to fix whatever is wrong with this person so we can go forth and be happy, right? Anything else that stuck out to you guys about why people potentially stay? Miss Amy, did you have something?
Oh no, it was to the previous one. I had a friend tell me a story about his mother that when they were younger, um, her hair was down to her bottom, and um, her when her husband would come home, from a night of drinking, he would drag her by her hair. That he dragged her so much by her hair that her hair would be different lengths. So she kept it short, like she kept her hair short for over 30 years for that reason, so that he wouldn't be able to drag her around by her hair. And
Absolutely.
he shared that story with me. He's like, he looked at, because my hair is past my bottom. And that's why he shared the story with me. He goes, I haven't seen anyone with long hair like that since my mother. And I was like, okay. And then when he told me the story, I was like, wow.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yes.
And I've heard stories of women who keep their hair long to be able to cover bruises or cover marks or cover scars. I had we had one woman come into shelter when I worked in a program in California, whose husband would not let her wear clothes in the house, and he would call repairmen and make appointments and make her open the door or leave the windows open as a way to sexualize her, and then get mad at her for having the men look at her or say she was flirting with them. And so she grew her hair really, really long so she could cover her breasts, so she could potentially have some coverage from this humiliation, from this control. And when she came to shelter, the first thing she did was grab scissors and chop all of her hair off by herself, because she said, if I cut it off, I know I will never go back.
Wow.
Very, very powerful. Yeah, absolutely. Great, great, great story, Amy. Thank you. All right. So, why people stay? There are a myriad of reasons, right? A lot of times we believe that the abuse is temporary. We believe we can change the abuser. We believe it'll never happen again, lots of times, because that's what we're told every time. It will never happen again, I promise. And then the behavior changes for a while, and we get in that honeymoon phase, and then the tension starts building, and then the cycle happens all over again, right? We believe that we have a responsibility to the family. Maybe we believe that our kids deserve two parents. I hear that all the time. My children deserve to have a father. My children deserve to live in a two-parent household. I don't want to be a single mother or a single father again, if this has happened before. And we feel that responsibility. They believe that more good times are ahead. Again, the honeymoon phase plays such a huge part. Okay, fear is a huge reason. They fear losing this person they love. And while they may not love the person who abuses them, they get those glimpses, or they love the person that their partner was when they first started dating or when they first got married, right? They fear physical harm or harm to themselves or children. A lot of times abusers will make threats. If you leave me, I'll kill myself. If you leave me, I'll hurt the children. If you leave me, I'll take the children, right? Fear of loss of finances. Like Rita brought up earlier, gosh, finances are a huge way that abusers control. I just put up a stat yesterday for Domestic Violence Awareness Month stating that homelessness is or domestic violence, financial abuse is the third leading cause of homelessness to women in the United States. They leave and they don't have the ways and means to take care of themselves and their kids. They've not been given that ability or that right in their relationship. Maybe they haven't been able to work, or their partner is constantly getting them fired or don't allow them to work. Maybe all of the money is taken. They have to turn over their paychecks. They don't have access to money. Maybe their partner has run up their credit. They have terrible credit because their partner has ruined their credit by taking out credit cards and loans and not paying them back as a way to have means and control over them. Fear that they can't make it on their own. Here they're being told that they're dumb and they're stupid and they're ugly. I mean, all of the things that you heard those women in the video talk about, how they can't even make it in a relationship. How could they make it on their own, right? So fear is huge. Lots of other reasons. We talk about economics, pressure from community, family, or faith, guilt or self-doubt. Gosh, we put so much guilt on ourselves. Concern for the children, lack of support, either from family, friends, and things like that. Okay, so this is the power and control wheel. The power and control wheel came about in the 80s when we started learning more about domestic violence. And what the power and control wheel looks at is non-physical ways that someone is able to gain and maintain power and control in a relationship. So we're going to go through some of those. Okay, intimidation is one. So intimidation can be frightening someone's partner with looks, actions, or gestures, smashing and destroying things, destroying property, abusing pets, displaying weapons. Intimidation. Emotional abuse, name calling, either privately, behind closed doors or out in public, using put downs to make someone feel bad, trying to make them think they're crazy. We call that gaslighting. Trying to make them feel guilty about their behavior. Isolation, which I think Amy talked about a little bit about earlier. So controlling what they do, who they see, who they talk to. Exhibiting behaviors that cause separation from friends and family. How many of you guys have, friends where when you go out with them, they always get in a fight? Or a particular couple where when people are like, oh, we're going out in a group, we're going to invite so-and-so, and you're kind of like, ugh, drama, right? Like, all things always happen. So what a great way for me to isolate my partner from friends and family than to create a scene every single time we go out, or to get obliterated drunk every single time we go out, to pick fights with friends and family members to where they're not going to want to invite us out for nights on the town. They're not going to want to invite us to family functions, or maybe they invite you but say, oh, that Melanie, like we don't really want to be around her. You can come, but we don't want her to come, right? And so now you're put in a position where you have to choose, do you go and leave your partner at home, or do you just not go at all, right? Very, very manipulative. Great isolation tactic. Okay. Limiting outside involvement, how often that person's allowed to leave the house, what they're allowed to be involved with, and then using jealousy to justify their actions. Denial and blame. So the abuser may make light of the abuse, make light of the abusive situation, doesn't take the abused person's concerns seriously. Maybe the victim is trying to tell them, I don't appreciate when this happens. I don't like when you talk to me that way. That's very embarrassing when you treat me that way in front of people, and they just make light of it or don't take it seriously. They may deny the abuse happened at all, or shift responsibility to the abused person. There's a video that I used to show in high school and college classes of a girl talking about an abusive incident with her partner, and they had been out drinking at a frat party, and they got in an argument, He got jealous. They got in an argument, grabbed her by the arm, took her outside. He's they're walking home, and he's berating her and yelling at her, and her eyes are to the ground, and she sees his foot come over, and he trips her, and she falls over some bushes, and she hits her head on a rock, and she's disoriented, and she's very aware of what happened. And so she gets up and she's really angry. She's yelling at him, "Why would you do that to me? You tripped me. I hit my head. I'm bleeding. Why would you do that?" And he says, "I didn't do anything. You're so clumsy. You trip over your own feet all the time. You trip on nothing. Why would I trip you?" And she said by the end of the 5-minute conversation, she was so confused because she knew what she saw, but he was twisting the event so much that she almost wasn't believing her own perception of the event, what she knew happened, right? So denying the abuse happened, gaslighting when it comes to the events that happen, and then shifting responsibility to the abused person. Using children. So making them feel guilty about the children, relaying messages through the children, using visitation to harass, threatening to take the children through charges of neglect and abuse. So this is one way that we see that abusers are able to gain or maintain power and control even after the victim has left the relationship, is through children, right? So relaying messages, using visitation, drop off as a way to harass them, and then those constant threats of taking that child or those children away. Okay, male privilege. So when the male partner is acting like a master or treating that person like less than, or like what we would call maybe a slave, making all the big decisions. In a healthy relationship, we talk about things before we make big decisions for the relationship, but maybe I don't, ask my partner at all about that. I just make decisions and they have to, live with it. Defining and enforcing the roles of men and women. We find that when people in relationships have very strict gender stereotypes, for that relationship, that we can see more abuse or power and control come into play. Now, that is not to say that buying into traditional male and female roles in a relationship isn't okay. But when there's no conversation, when there's no agreement, when you don't sit down with your partner in the early stages of your relationship and talk about, how do you see yourself in this relationship? If we get married, what do you want our roles to be? What do you think about raising children? What will our roles be in that? And having a conversation, and then also leaving room for change, right? Leaving room for, "Hey, I really don't think this is working. What do you think about trying to implement this?" Or, "This thing that we decided on 10 years ago isn't working for me anymore." If you get shut down and there's no room for discussion or growth or change in that relationship, then that can be a sign that things are moving in the wrong direction. Economic, so financial abuse, preventing someone from getting or keeping a job, giving them an allowance, forcing them to ask for money, taking the partner's money, or not allowing knowledge or access to family income. And this is where it again, can be kind of a gray area. When we talk about allowances, when my husband and I had some lofty financial goals, I was in charge of our finances, is what was agreed upon. And so I gave everybody an allowance, right? All the money came into the account. I was in charge of paying bills and deciding what went in to savings, and I did cash allowance for the kids, got cash allowance, and my husband and I got cash allowance. But everyone was in the know. My husband and I had conversations. He had access to financial information. I answered any questions that he had. He had our bank logins. If things were needed outside of whatever our allotted allowance was, there was room for conversation. If it was a bigger buy, or, it's not like, "Oh, I ran out of lunch money. I need X, Y, and Z." And I was like, "Nope, you already used all your money. You get nothing." Or he got $300 for the month and I got $800 for the month, right? There was equality, there was conversation. But if that isn't there, if it isn't present, then again, that's a sign that things may be in the wrong direction. Okay. Coercion and threats. So threats of harm, either to self or others. Again, a lot of times abusers will say things like, "If you leave me, I will kill myself. Everyone will blame you. It will be your fault." right? Threats to leave that person, threats to report the abused person to child welfare or the police, making the abused person drop charges or do illegal things. Sometimes when drugs and alcohol come into play, there's a coercion to get the victim to use drugs or alcohol in an effort to make them culpable, right? Or to whatever happens, or make them not a credible witness. Or, if they're both drunk and there's an incident that happens and the police come, is it just that they were drinking? Is it not necessarily a domestic violence incident? So getting them to do illegal things, having proof that they did illegal things that they can then hold over their head when it comes to them wanting to leave. Okay. Signs and signals, like we said, bruising, hair appears to have been ripped out, difficulty in mobility, sitting in the chair. Partner won't let them change their style, or difficulty keeping appointments can even be signs and signals. Okay. It's also important to remember that individually, these may not mean that something is going on in that relationship. Okay. Seeing one sign or signal, recognizing one thing off the power and control wheel may not necessarily mean that that person's in an abusive relationship, but it's important to recognize them and keep track of or notice if there are patterns happening in that relationship, so you can then potentially reach out to that person and see if they need assistance. Okay. More signs and signals, looking for a pattern, not just an isolated incident, like I just said. Looking for radical changes in their behavior, their hairstyles, their makeup. Maybe they are always put together. Their hair is always coiffed and perfect. Their makeup is always on point. And then you start noticing that they're not wearing makeup as often, that they're looking really tired. They're not taking care of their skin. Their hair is, not looking great when they come in. Okay. Notice what's not being said. Respect privacy and confidentiality. Okay. This is why the privacy and confidentiality part, it's so great to have posters and window clings and information cards all around your salon, as to not bring something up that may not be happening, first of all, but also to allow someone to have access to resources and assistance without having to ask for it. Okay. All right. Any questions so far before we get started on the next video? Any comments?
That was excellent. Thank you so much for making it as plain as you have made it, and your years of experience. I can hear it in the way you sound, the way you give an explanation, why it happened, what it looks like, and that's great. I love it. I told them you were the best at this, and so we really appreciate you actually being that part of the community that provides the training that we, so that we can help and assist with what you're doing to get the word out. So thank you, Melanie.
Oh, Miss Rita, you're the sweetest. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to unmute this so we can hear the second part of the video.
People are going to present very differently based on their own experiences and based on what they're going through at the time. So I think it's always
Oops, sorry about that.
important to remember that you know your client best. You've been working with them, you have a rapport built with them, and so you can look for different things that change.
All right, here we go.
People are going to present very differently based on their own experiences and based on what they're going through at the time. So I think it's always important to remember that you know your client best. You've been working with them, have rapport built with them, and so you can look for different things that change within them. Here are a few examples of scenarios that you can look out for.
Hi, Melissa, how are you? It's been a while. It has been a while. How's that little girl of yours? Not doing so good. She's she's having a little bit of a hard time at school right now and at home. So, yeah, I know changing schools can be really challenging. What about your husband? How's he? Not doing so hot either. He has been drinking again, and last night he got really drunk and it turned into a really bad situation.
So if I were sitting in that chair, it would really show me that she's trying to build a connection with me and she does care. And by showing me that she's coming around to make eye contact with me, I can really get that sense of safety from her.
When he finally came through the door, when we finally saw him, he had a gun and he was threatening my daughter, threatening me.
Well, if someone is sharing that personal information with me, it's really important that I stay calm in my reaction, because you want to remember that there's a lot of other people there and the person is sharing very confidential information with you. And so it's important not to make a huge reaction, not to seem shocked or appalled by what you're hearing, even if that is how you're feeling, but to try to remain pretty neutral and pretty quiet when you're responding, so the person knows that not everyone in the salon is going to know their business.
I just feel like there's no one out there who can help me, and financially, I'm not ready to leave right now. I have some information for you if you'd like it. It could help. I have a phone number, and everything's completely confidential. And they'll be able to point you in the right direction and really, really help you out. Would you like that? Yeah.
Okay. Well, the number for the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-SAFE, SAFE, and that number should really be provided to anyone who expresses that they're going through this type of situation. If you specifically know of local resources that you could provide information about to your client, that could also be really helpful. But if you just give that national phone number, they'll be directed to a local organization.
So, how would you say your hair held up? Oh, it held up fine. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. I'm okay. Because I feel a little lump back here. Did you hurt yourself? Oh, no, please, girl. It's nothing. I ran into a door. It's no big deal. Did you see a doctor about this lump? It's okay, really.
So if you're talking to one of your clients and they're giving you some signs that there might be something to be concerned about, it's really a fine line, because you shouldn't be afraid to ask the question. Oftentimes your client's not going to come out and say, I'm being abused, unless you give them the green light to do so. So it is important to ask the question. On the other hand, if you ask the question and they're hesitant or resistant to speak about their experience, you really don't want to push too hard. It might just be something they're not ready to share with you. But the sheer fact that you ask the question allows them to know that this is a safe place. This is someone that they can open up to in the future.
Correct. Because the last time you came in, you had some bruises. It's okay. Everything is fine. Let's just please change the subject.
So if you do ask the question and you feel like you're pushing too much, or maybe you overstepped, it's absolutely okay to say, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to offend, or I didn't want to presume anything. It's just some of the things you're saying have me a little bit concerned, and I want to make sure that you're safe.
Okay. But I want you to know, if you ever need me, I'm here for you. Okay.
So there's definitely a stereotype that anything that's said in a salon is going to be gossiped about, and everyone's going to tell their other clients or their coworkers. So I think it's important when you're speaking with a client about an issue like this that you do try to be discreet and let them know that anything they share with you is going to stay between the two of you. It's also really important that you tell them you're not going to take any action on your own. In addition to not talking about it with your coworkers or clients, you're also not going to contact the police on their behalf, because doing so could actually put them in a more dangerous position than they were already in. So yeah, I think making sure that you maintain the client's confidentiality and know that even though salons might be gossipy places, when it comes to an issue as serious as this, you are going to keep it between the two of you.
So Matt, do you have any plans this weekend?
No, not really.
No, you're not doing anything?
No, I mean, Scott usually has us do something, so I'll probably just, be home with him.
Remember that time you came with me and the girls? We went to that art show.
Yeah, that was really fun. I like
That same artist is in town this weekend. Why don't you come with us?
That's really nice, but I think that Scott would really much rather have me at home. Like, sometimes when I hang out with some people, like, he just gets really weird because he says that I get a little weird when I hang out with other people. So I'd rather just, stay home and kind of hang out with him. So,
Oh, that's a shame. You love art, though.
yeah, I do really miss it. I don't get out much anymore.
If there's anything you ever need to talk about, you know that I'm here for you, or I can point you in the right direction.
Thank you. That'd be nice.
Most of the time, victims and survivors are female, but this is an issue that also impacts men, and it also impacts the lesbian, gay, trans, and queer community.
I would have loved for somebody to have sat me down and looked me in the face and said, I know what's going on, and you don't have to say anything. But, it's private. Here's a number you can call.
So the best thing you can do is provide a safe space for your client, a space where they know they're going to be listened to and they're not going to be judged for what they share.
So over the years, my clients never asked me or thought that I was their counselor or their guardian angel. But I feel that they definitely feel more comfortable knowing that I'm a shoulder to cry on and that I can help them get help, because to get help on your own sometimes is really hard.
If somebody approached me and said, I'm here and I care, that would have been the right thing to do. That would have been the right thing for me.
Every opportunity I get, I tell stylists, never stay quiet. Because if you keep quiet, you're only helping the perpetrator. And at that point, they have the upper hand and the problem will never be solved.
Like, I think women are scared to ask for help and they're scared to leave. So it's not just for salon owners, it's for anybody. Honestly, you can be the difference between that person being here today and not being here tomorrow.
All right, great video. So what are some things that stuck out to you guys in that portion of the video about how to respond and how to assist? I definitely think one of the most important points that they made was not to push the situation, to ask the question, but if the person seems hesitant, to just let them know that you are someone that they can talk to. Definitely is important. And then the confidentiality piece, how they said that, the conception or the misconception about salons is that everybody gossips about everybody, right? So how can we convey to our clients that we're not someone who does that? Don't do it in front of our clients, or don't do it at all, right? I mean, if I don't ever hear my hairdresser talking about their other clients, then I'm going to potentially, trust that person even more. Miss Rita, did you have something? I saw you unmuted.
No, it was just the observation of letting them know that it is a safe place, like you had said, so that they can tell you information, and you don't want to report it to the police. You want to go, well, I'm going to call the police, well, I'm going to turn it in. And it could put them or their child in danger. It could also turn the person that is abusive to them to seek out you, and then you start to be abused also. I saw that one time.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And I think, and this is in any realm of our life, if we are concerned about someone and we're noticing patterns, you always want to come from a place of concern, not I know what is best for you, not that guy sucks, not why are you with him, not in a judgy tone. The way that we say things is very, very important. And victim blaming is so ingrained in our psyche. It's so ingrained in our um, initial responses, our socialization, that a lot of times we think we're trying to be helpful, but the way that we say things is really blaming towards the victim, right? The first question generally that people ask when someone discloses they're in an abusive relationship is, why do you stay? Right? Well, if I ask you, why do you stay? Who does it seem like I'm saying is in charge of or responsible for the abuse? It's you. I don't say, oh my gosh, why does this person think it's okay to treat you that way? I don't say, you know, I don't understand why that would be happening, but I say, why do you stay? Which is implying that by staying, you're okay with, or you're asking for this to happen. And I can see how the question from a friend or family member is like, oh my gosh, well, why are you staying? Let's help you work through these barriers. What barriers do you have? But the way that we ask the question can be blamey, and it can shut that person down, right? So we always want to come from the place of concern. Is everything okay? I'm really concerned about you. I'm here if you want to talk. I've been noticing how her hair's concerned because now you have a bump on your head. And last time you came in, I noticed there was bruising. I just want to make sure everything is okay. It's fabulous. It's coming from a place of concern, right? And then when the lady said, I don't want to talk about this anymore, she said, I can respect that. I just want you to know that I'm concerned and I care about you and I'm here if you ever want to talk. Fabulous, fabulous, right? And Rita's point, it is not our place to call the police. It can absolutely make things worse. And we then are telling that victim or potential victim that we are not a safe person for them. You think they're ever going to want to come back to our salon? Do you think they're ever going to want to come back and be honest with me if something, worse happens, if they're really in a place that they need help? So we always want to do what is in the best interest of the individual. And also remember, it's not our place to fix that situation, right? It's not our place to take that on. We are there to offer resources and provide assistance and support for that person. That is all. Okay. We're not there to fix the situation. All right. Okay. So referring, how to ask, right? Like we said, is everything okay? I'm concerned about you. I'm noticing these things, right? Patch of missing hair, lump on the head, bruising, all of that. What to do. First and foremost, we want to believe someone who comes forward and tells us what's happening in their relationship. We want to let them know that we believe them. Okay. We want to respect their right to privacy or the fact that they're refusing help. Okay. We want to encourage them to seek help, and we need to know when to refer. Something else that's important to remember is the phone number that's associated with this, the national hotline, is a crisis hotline. We operate a crisis hotline. Most domestic violence programs have a crisis hotline. A lot of times people think that hotline is only for victims. You can only call if you're a victim and you need assistance, and that is not true. If you are a friend or a family member, a community member, or someone, a service professional, and you have a client or a coworker or a friend or family member that you're concerned about, and you don't know what to do, you are in crisis, you absolutely can contact any of these numbers just to talk through a situation, to get some guidance on how to handle a situation, how to better support that person. Maybe you're frustrated. Maybe you are frustrated that you have a friend or family member or a client that sits in your chair every single month, and you are recognizing and you are offering help and you're offering support, and they are completely shut down and they don't want the help. Maybe you just need someone to help you process that. Call us. Call the hotline, call the national hotline. There are trained advocates to be able to help you through these situations, okay? Okay, so what to do? National Domestic Violence Hotline number, 1-800-799-SAFE. So that's 1-800-799-7233. If you have a pen or piece of paper, I will absolutely give you our information. We are Montgomery County Women's Center. Our business office is located in North Conroe. And we do have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week crisis hotline. The phone number for our crisis hotline is 936-441-7273. Again, it's 936-441-7273. And again, we have trained advocates 24/7 that can, offer you assistance. If you have someone sitting in your chair who says, I really don't know what to do, offer them a safe place to call. Hey, I have this information. If you're interested in stepping away for a minute, taking a break, or calling after your appointment, feel free to use our lash room or our storeroom or our stock room, or step out on the back patio where you can be alone, to make that phone call. Not only offering them the information, but the safe space to get access to that information can be extremely helpful and important. Okay. All right. So what not to do? We don't want to inject our own feelings about that situation. Okay. We don't want to tell them how we feel. We don't want to be forceful. We don't want to be judgmental, other than being concerned about them. Let me preface that. Okay. We don't want to be judgmental. Don't try to be a counselor. You're not a counselor, although sometimes it may feel that way. You're not trained to do this, right? It's important to understand that how we respond to victims who come forward, whether it's about domestic violence or sexual assault, in a relationship or outside of a relationship, okay? It's important to understand that how we respond when someone first discloses really writes the narrative for if that person will ever disclose or come forward again. If someone discloses to us and we come off as harsh or judgmental or forceful or too pushy, that person may shut down and they may not be willing to open up to you or anyone else. Okay. I know that's really heavy and maybe a lot of pressure. But again, just remembering, come from a place of concern, recognize and refer. Okay. Don't try to fix the situation. All right, so recap what to do. Talk discreetly. I love how the hairdresser came around to the front of the chair to show that she was engaged in the conversation. Her hands were forward. She was leaning, and right body language saying, I'm concerned and I'm invested in this. I want you to know that I'm somebody that's safe. You may even want to ask them, like that woman who was talking about how her husband had a gun and threatened her kid. I don't know that I would have maybe sat in that chair and allowed her to continue talking with other people in the salon. If there were people in chairs close to her, I may ask her if she'd like to go to another room to talk, where she may feel more comfortable or something like that. Okay. We want to be direct if we have concerns, and then definitely offer referrals and continue to watch for signs. Okay. All right, so like I said before, if you go to the website and the link is in your email, you can order information and free posters, safety cards, and things like that to put in your space. So they have posters and safety cards. They have window clings. You can put your safety cards in different areas of the salon. In the front, again, the restroom, I think, is a perfect place to have information. At each hairstylist little pod would be great. And start conversations with coworkers, including what do you want your policy to be? Educate other salon professionals about how to handle. Maybe have a plan in place if someone's in imminent danger. How can each person in the salon act to help that person be as safe as possible? Okay, commit to change. All right, that's where you can order your free material. It's probeauty.com/cutit-out. And again, the National Domestic Violence Hotline number. All right, so that is the end of our training for today. I'm happy to answer any questions or re-go over any information that y'all have. Any comments that y'all have about the information or the training?
Thank you for the opportunity, Melanie.
You're welcome, Miss Rita. Thanks again, ladies, for joining us. And please, again, feel free to pass along our information to anyone else that you feel could benefit from it in the beauty community. And we are always open to booking more trainings.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day, ladies.
Thank you.